I'm Tom Niedermeyer with the AMF Training School. Welcome to our partnership program Maintenance Matters video series. Today we'll be working on the distributor. AMF strongly suggests that whenever you're working on the pin spotter that the power plug should be removed. This is for safety. In addition to removing the plug, it should be put into a lockout box and the box padlocked shut so that no one other than the mechanic who's working on the machine would be able to re-energize the pin spotter. One of the items of maintenance on the distributor would be the distributor belt itself. The surface of the belt will wear, indicating belt replacement time is near. So we would inspect the surface of the belt to see the condition of it, and if the belt is still good, we would then check to see if the belt is stretching in length. That would show up in this area here, where the belt is close to the distributor housing. As the belt stretches in service, this gap would close up, indicating the need to shorten the belt to prevent the belt from actually rubbing on this housing. The spring we see here is keeping tension on the distributor belt. So should we need to remove the belt, first we need to remove this spring. Screwdriver works quite well. Small notch in the end of the screwdriver will prevent it from slipping. We can very easily then disconnect the spring. From this point, we would look for the lacing, and it's always best to have stopped the distributor with this lacing right up on the top so it's easy to locate. We stopped the distributor in the right place this time, so we need to remove this lacing, and very often it does require the use of a pair of pliers in order to help pull that out. However, this one comes out quite easily. This then will allow us to remove the belt from the distributor, shorten it as the case may be. When cutting a distributor belt to length, it's best to use a square so that we get it cut off straight. Otherwise, we may have some difficulties in getting the belt to track perfectly straight. A utility knife works quite well in trimming the belt. And since this is a rough top belt, we do need to remove the rough top with a skiving tool in order to seat the lacings in there correctly. Otherwise, the lacings would not be seated correctly. We wouldn't get a neat job. We need to take off 3/4 to 1 inch of the rough top. And we put the lacings into the belt lacer, install the retainer. We need to remove the cardboard that holds the clips into position. And this lacer is used in conjunction with a vise. So we would rest this on the jaws of a vise, and we're going to center our distributor belt on those clips, making sure there's none within about 1/4 of an inch of the end. We'll crank the vise together tightly in order to seat the clips firmly. When reinstalling the distributor belt, we want to make certain that we get the belt installed between the belt guard and the roller, as opposed to going under the belt guard, which would put a little friction on our belt. And we need to realign it and reinsert our lacing pin. There should be about 3/8 of an inch clearance between the belt guard and the highest point on the bin assembly. This is to avoid any problems with the pin distribution on the back row. Should we need to change this clearance, we do so here at the front distributor support, either adding shims to increase the clearance or removing shims to decrease the clearance. In order to remove the distributor, we must first remove the distributor drive shaft. We would need to turn the distributor just slightly in order to line up the drive pin with the opening in the universal joint, and then we could swing the distributor just a little and slide the drive shaft out of the drive housing. The springs at the base of the distributor must be removed, starting with the one smaller in diameter. When the large spring is removed, the safety link will separate. Once the distributor drive shaft has been removed and the springs disconnected at the base of the distributor, we're actually ready to lift the distributor out of position. However, if one of the pin brackets in the elevator wheel happens to be directly above the orienter pan, it'll interfere. We've marked this pin bracket with tape so it's easy to see. And we do want to turn the wheel in order to clear that pin bracket when we bring the distributor up off of its support. Before reinstalling the distributor, we do want to make certain that the distributor support is lightly lubricated and that the bearing support washer is in position. And we're ready to put the distributor itself back over the support. Once the distributor is back in position, we want to check to make sure there's a slight clearance between the orienter pan and the elevator wheel. Close, but not touching. If we have insufficient clearance or too much, we would loosen the bolts that attach the orienter pan, moving it away from or closer to the wheel as need be. The large spring needs to be installed first at the base of the distributor. However, before we can put the spring on, we need to put the safety link back in its tube, and then the spring can be reconnected. After the distributor is back in position, we must reconnect the distributor drive shaft, first into the housing, and then reconnecting the universal joint. We've taken some of the items off of the distributor that we would be observing in our preventative maintenance program so that they would be easier to look at. And here we see the black rough top belt that we're now using as original equipment. Next to that, we're looking at the lacing or clips that put the belt together. This would be items that would be in our inventory, as well as looking at the universal joints, both the plastic and the steel. The plastic is used as the original equipment. However, both the plastic and the steel are available in the aftermarket. The drive housing that we see there is very often overlooked as a source of problems with the distributor not working correctly. The housings do wear. The ball bearings do not slide freely. It's even possible for the housing itself to twist, so we would need to inspect it closely. The rollers that the distributor belt runs on would be cleaned as necessary and the bearings replaced as necessary. Looking also at the eccentric and concentric rollers. Stop blade would be inspected for damage, and looking also at the pinion that drives our constant torque clutch. The spring, the worm gear would also be inspected closely. We'd be looking at the clutch plate assembly itself, as well as the friction disc and the drive plate. The rear pulley of the distributor is mounted on the distributor shaft. It's possible for these to become bent, so we'd be looking closely at the shaft and the special flat-sided washer that we see there. The carriage tubes can become damaged. They also will wear dramatically where the eccentric rollers run on them, so we'd be looking at the carriage tubes for wear and also for the possibility of being bent. We'd observe the carriage trip stop rod assembly as well as the cable that operates our trip stop. We're looking at the cam, make sure that it's not fractured in any way at all. Looking at the rollers on the ends of the index levers. These also can become damaged and actually wear to the point where they would drop off. These are all items that we find making up our distributor assembly that need to be checked in our preventative maintenance program. This completes our overview of the distributor. For more detailed instructions on its operation and maintenance, you're invited to attend our training program in Richmond, Virginia.